Welcome to this Knowledge Exchange UK Insight webinar about the KE Awards. Um, we will explain briefly a little bit about the KE Awards. I'll chat to Dave. Dave Bembo is with us. Dave is a long-time judge of the KE Awards. I don't know, Dave, how many years you've been helping us with that?
And I'm not too sure either, Stuart, but it's been a few years. So yeah, but very pleased to contribute.
Thank you. And we'll I'll ask Dave some of his sort of experiences from looking at entries from over the years that will perhaps help you if you're preparing an entry to get a sense of what the judges are looking for. Um, so we'll do that after I've just explained a little bit about the KE Awards. So as you know, we're 10 days away from the deadline for the KE Awards. This allows us sufficient time to work with the judges and to communicate with those that are shortlisted, so that we're prepared for the event, which will be in November in Newcastle, in the Boiler Shop at Newcastle. So we're quite excited about that showcase, and that's always an exciting evening, um, uh, just to see the breadth of entries and the breadth of knowledge exchange and the impact that's happening with knowledge exchange across the UK. It's an absolutely awesome event. And it's awesome because people put in entries and submit to the KE Awards. And it's a really good showcase for activities in the UK. I know UKRI, who are one of our supporters for this, really value that sort of insight into the activities of what's going on and celebrating it. We split the awards into two types. There are project awards. So we have the Strategic Partnership Award, the Commercial Impact Award, the Societal Impact Award, and the Regional Economy Impact Awards. So you can see that we're kind of trying to focus on different aspects of knowledge exchange, exchange being a partnership, the commercial aspects, the societal aspects, and the impact locally and in the regional economy. I'll talk a bit about the criteria in a moment or two, and how you can sort of juggle those different awards. In terms of the People and Team Awards, which is the second type of award we have four of those too. So we have an Advancing Knowledge Exchange Culture Award. We have a Sector Collaboration Award, which is looking at how different organizations collaborate together. And we have an Institutional KE Team Award for teams across a particular institution. And this year, for the first time, we have the Policy Engagement Initiative, which we're working in collaboration with UPenn. Each of those two categories of awards, we look at the same criteria for each, but we weight them slightly differently. So if you've been looking at the project awards, you'll see we're interested to know what the societal impact of that commercial impact award is. But obviously, we weight the criterion towards the commercial impact or the societal impact. But we are interested in that broader take too. Similarly, with the People and Project Awards, the People and Team Awards, the same criteria are used, but just weighted slightly differently according to those different categories. So they're the 8 categories with similar criteria across the two types of award. We also have a sort of ninth award on the night. So the judges will go through and try and shortlist some sort of finalists. But we often find that it's really hard to categorize all these awards. So we will have a sort of public vote, which we've done for the last couple of years, which are projects that don't quite fit or don't quite get shortlisted, which we feel really worth putting in the spotlight. And we will promote those awards online and have a little bit of a campaign about those public vote awards, just to show again some of the breadth of knowledge exchange. So I think that's what I was going to say just in terms of outlining the awards. As I say, 10 days till the deadline. We have a panel of judges from across the sector. You can see their details on the website. And what we do is that we divide those judges into little groups, and they look at different categories, and they we give them the impossible task of trying to work out which are the best of the applications for the awards. And it is an impossible task because every application has amazing strengths and amazing opportunities in it. So that being said, I'm going to ask Dave a couple of questions. I noticed there are a couple of things coming in the Q&A which we can pick up at the end. But Dave, you've why are these awards important from your perspective, both as a judge, but also as a long-time practitioner in KE? Why do you think the KE Awards are important?
Well, I think from first principles, they actually represent best practice across the sector. Albeit not all institutions apply, but we have a very healthy field of applicants every year. And certainly my team internally here at Swansea University find it really helpful to go back to look at the list of shortlisted projects every year and think about the way in which those projects have been delivered, think about the way those projects are structured. So that best practice element is really, really helpful. The awards also provide recognition for teams and for individuals, and that's internal recognition within organizations, so within universities or other R&D organizations, and also externally as well. So they kind of, they showcase the great things that are happening within organizations, and they allow a platform for promotion of those activities as well. It's probably also the only or one of the very few opportunities where we have this kind of scheme that's open to knowledge exchange professionals. We're a professional set of individuals within universities and related organizations, and yet there aren't really that many opportunities for us to really shout and tell people about what we do. And I think the awards give us that opportunity.
And that's very much why the sponsors and UKRI as a supporter are really interested in that promotion of this activity, the spotlight that it puts on it. And it's really helpful, Dave, for you to give that perspective from an institution and from individuals in the institution. I often think that even suggesting someone applies for one of these awards is a great thing to do, because knowledge exchange is hard, and often you don't get recognition, and eventually it might be successful. And lead to good outcomes, but actually it's always useful to encourage people as you go along. So I think the awards are important and entering are important. In terms of the judging process, as a judge, what strikes you? What are you looking for in terms of those applications? What really sort of makes things stand out from a judging perspective?
So it's a little bit like when this is generic, but and I'm only going to talk about, by the way, the generic elements of this. So I'm not, as you said, as judges, we get the categories carved up, and then we focus on a particular category. It's probably worth me saying, actually, just for people's awareness out there, that we tend to shortlist within the categories as a judging group, and we make recommendations. But then the entire judging panel gets back together. And essentially, if I'm part of a group that's looked at one of the categories, or usually two of the categories, then essentially I'll be called upon to defend my recommendations and my decisions. And you tend to find there'll be others on the judging panel who've also read those applications. It's as you'd expect, it's completely transparent. Everyone declares any potential or actual conflicts of interest and takes no further part in the discussion around that particular application or applications. But the recommendations we make, they are scrutinized and they are challenged by others on the panel, and that can be quite a robust debate. But the first things that I tend to look for are the applications that really grip me in the first few sentences. So I could see one of the questions that came up in the Q&A already is about AI, and we're trying to get a feeling, I think, for how generative AI is used in putting applications together. We're certainly not ruling it out, so I think that's one of the implications. Although your colleagues in the back office teams, Stu, may want to make a more detailed comment on that as well. One of the recognition elements, I suppose, from AI written text can be that it's a bit repetitive and a bit bland and a bit samey. Not all generative AI. It's the systems are getting a lot better, and that probably means that it's not going to give you the wow factor in the opening sentences of whatever you've written. So I think first impressions are really important, and the ability of whoever's writing this to convey the excitement and the totality of the project within that initial paragraph or two.
I think you're right. We'll go on a little detour around the AI question, because, as you say, it's been raised. AI is with us. We're well aware that AI is a tool that people are using. So we are just trying to monitor and understand how people are using it, rather than prohibiting it. Just because we know that people will be using AI to help them with their applications. To today's point, though, I think many of us will have experienced job applications or which have used AI, which aren't really selling or writing the best points of the application. The discerning view of you as KE practitioners, in terms of really focusing the application on the real strong, exciting points is absolutely key. So it's for monitoring, not prohibition. But as ever with AI, we're just mindful what did somebody say to me the other day? It's great for the starting line, but not the finishing line. So if you're using it to get going, it's a great thing. But if you're using it to get across the finish line, then maybe the human in the loop is a little bit too removed. But by all means, use AI in that respect. So Dave, you gave us a little bit about that, what you're looking for and what catches your eye to start off with. I know the KE Awards are trying to talk about impact and the way we get to impact. So have you got any thoughts on how applicants can really demonstrate genuine impact and what that might look like from your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, these are knowledge exchange awards, and in order to put a successful application forward, that means you need a partner or partners with which to exchange knowledge, and it's really helpful to see that that two-way flow. So one, let's look at the way that you're engaging with the external organizations or organizations that you're working with. How deep is that relationship? Is there genuine long-term commitment on both sides, or indeed on multiple sides? Personally, I like to see some kind of endorsement, so some evidence that there's actually been a discussion with the external partners in terms of putting the KE application together, and brief quotations. And this is not a lengthy entry format, but brief quotations for me can sometimes make the applications come alive. Many of the applications that we see are being put forward as putative ref impact case studies. I mean, that's no secret, and you'd kind of expect it. And one element of ref ICS is really helpful here. It's evidence. So carrying out a piece of research, a piece of R&D, and knowing that you've got an external partner on board is something that takes you, it's great, but it only takes you so far. So those applications which really consider and offer evidence, perhaps in a ref context, that can be really powerful as well.
Yeah, I think from the KUK point of view, we want to highlight individuals, we want to highlight partnerships, and we want to highlight the impact that's being had. So any evidence that sort of allows us to do that, allows us to showcase that, is really, really helpful, and tells a really, really good story. I think you talked a little bit about the collaborative side of things. I think in all of the categories, there's an element of collaboration. Some of the categories we sort of focus on a little bit more than others, such as the sort of people and team awards. But they all have a sort of element of collaboration in there. So spelling out who those partners are, and how they do it. Obviously, everything is word limited, which means it's quite challenging. So those kind of skills of writing concisely are really, really important. Just going to remind people they can ask questions in the Q&A, and I'm going to ask you one or maybe two more questions before we take any Q&A questions, and I'll remind people about what happens next in the process. So I guess there may be people that haven't that have been encouraged to apply and have never applied for an award before, and are perhaps a bit reticent to do so. There may be people that have never sort of are new in their career, earlier in their career. So what advice would you give to people who have never applied for an award before, or who've never applied for the KE Awards before? What kind of top tips would you have for people in that category?
Well, my first tip would be go for it, because you've got to be in it to win it, right? But then the second tip I would give is you've probably got a lot of really useful material floating around your department and floating around your university already. From that, I don't overstress it, but that list of putative impact case studies you might already be juggling around thinking about Ref 2029, but also from the whole range of KE projects that you're already working on. From your long list of projects that you've been considering and supporting as a knowledge exchange team. I'd be amazed if every university doesn't have one or two things in there which, due to the particular way in which they're delivering and managing that project, makes it stand out from the crowd and makes it something that others would really want to hear about. So yeah, that will be my advice. But also to think about the categories as well. And one thing we do see as judges is sometimes when people have tried to shoehorn a project into the wrong category. And you might want to say something about that, Stu, in terms of the approach that we then take. Because sometimes we do see really, really excellent projects, but they've been put forward by people in the wrong category. So think hard about those criteria and where you can put your project forward so that it shines properly, as it were.
I mean, I think it is useful to think about that hard, but one of the things that we've done in the last few years is to shift. So the criteria are the same across all the categories and weighted differently. So if we feel that it's appropriate to switch you into a different category, we can do that without you having to rework the application. We just switch the weighting. And as I said, we're aware that many KE projects, in fact, probably all KE projects, have a commercial, a societal, a regional impact, and it's really hard to make that call about which category they should go in. But that's why we have that criteria across the board, where we can easily switch them without disadvantaging any projects and just change the weighting that we use. So don't think about it, but don't worry about it, I guess is my sort of line for that there.
Absolutely.
I think also, Dave, you mentioned the approach we use to the judging, that we select a judging panel that is representative of the diverse types of organizations involved in knowledge exchange. We split them into groups to look at different categories just to make the process manageable. And then we have that moderation session where everybody can have a say. I think it's also important for us to say that we want to represent the totality of knowledge exchange, which is why we have those categories. But that also goes down to different institutions. We're well aware that the community around knowledge exchange exists of small institutions, of medium and of large institutions. And we welcome applications from any type of institution to submit entrants. So you may feel that you are a big institution and you don't need recognition. We still welcome those. Or you may feel that you're a small institution and what you're doing might not square up. Again, I'd sort of want to dismiss that logic and go, we look at the project specifically and the information you bring in, and it doesn't matter which institution you come from. What we want to do is to celebrate the diversity and the activity going across the sector. So I think with that, I've got one question I'm going to ask you at the end, which I haven't told you beforehand, Dave, which is around why do you do this? Why do you put your time into this? And I might leave you to think about that. I'm just going to outline what happens from here on in. So we have 10 days until the deadline. We then go into that judging process that I've then outlined. And then sort of September, October time, we'll come back to the shortlisted applicants, and we'll start the process of asking you to develop a short video that represents your application. We do this because on the night we use those videos and we use them in social media to explain what the projects are. So if you're shortlisted, we'll come back to you and we'll give you more information about how to do that. In the past, that has been a whole range of approaches. From people using their iPhone, doing a very simple but very effective communication, or far more sort of produced versions. Again, that's not to judge the application or the entry. It's just to showcase the story behind it. So we'll give more information around that when you're shortlisted. Then we have an awards evening, as I say, in Newcastle at the Boiler Shop, which is a celebration of knowledge exchange. I think last year I said, and I stand by, everyone is effectively a winner, because what matters is the impact that is being had, rather than the sort of ultimate outcome. And so it's a real celebration of that. So I'm just going to ask Heather just to clarify what she means about colleges, just so that we don't get the wrong end of the stick, because there are all sorts of different types of colleges, further education colleges, and other types of indication of college. So by all means, Heather, if you want to chat, thank you. I thought it might be, yes, further education colleges are welcome to apply. So yes, that's that one ticked off. And again, if you do want to ask a question, do feel free to put them in the Q&A. Jackie, I see. By all means, do feel free to ask direct questions to the team through the inbox, and we can deal with specific questions. We've received some nominations where the project impact is international. You mentioned regional impact. Could you talk a little bit about how nominations with an international focus will be viewed? Now, Dave, I'll give you some time to think about that, and I'll also say last year this happened quite a lot. That obviously the constraint of impact is very hard. I guess from a UK point of view, we're interested to highlight regional economic impacts for reasons that you'll be well aware of in terms of the political agenda at the moment, and for the last few years in terms of that sort of local place-based thing. But having worked in knowledge exchange before, I'm well aware that what is local, if you're doing clinical trials in Asia, that is local, as well as if you're working hyper-locally in a particular postcode very near to your institution. So, Dave, I don't know if you've got any thoughts about international impact and where that best fits and how to tackle that.
I think you've expressed it very well there, Stuart. So international activities are welcomed in the relevant categories with international partners or where the R&D is carried out internationally. Essentially, though, we will be focusing on the particular area that such as regional impact that's of relevance to a particular category. In previous rounds of the awards, so the first thing to say is the categories are not static. So every year I think we evolve and we lose certain categories and we introduce new ones. And we have had a particularly international focus on awards at certain times in the past. So it may be the colleagues are looking to see where they might have put the projects that might have been considered in a previous year. I think it's just about the context, isn't it? And ensuring that if you do have a project with an international activity, it can have a major impact in terms of the region or more locally.
And I think if it's a project, then we wouldn't. You could have an international application in any of those project categories. I think the same is true for. I'm trying to think it through, fly on the hoof. But we wouldn't have a problem with any of those being international. I think the regional economic impact is really trying to showcase that place-based agenda, which, as I say, has been relevant for the last few years, but particularly relevant going forward. I think also we ask you, and this is not a criteria that we judge against, but some data that makes it really helpful for us. We ask you how it aligns with missions and challenges from the UK government. That's not a criteria we judge against, but it just helps us in terms of showcasing the types of impact that are happening in the places. So we welcome international impact and we welcome sort of different types of mission impact. And that just helps us to tell a meta narrative around all of these applications alongside it. So hopefully, Jackie, that helps. I realise that it probably gives you the challenge of working out which project category or people category your project fits into. But as I say, think about it, but don't worry about it, because if the judges feel that it would be best somewhere else, we can easily move things around without sort of disadvantaging the particular application. I think on that, I also just want to mention EDI. So, Dave, you mentioned that the categories evolve over time. We used to have EDI categories. We now have a criteria around EDI in every single category, because we would find people were it wasn't constrained to one particular category. So we now look at the diversity sort of effect and impact of every single project as one of those criteria. I see, Dave, sorry, did I interrupt? Did you want to say something?
No, that's fine, Steve. That's fine.
Jackie is asking about the commercialization project and timing. So I think I thank you, Jackie, for asking that. I would love to see lots of commercialization projects. I say that just because this is the category which we don't get many applications. If I'm very honest with you, it's the lowest number of applications we get, which seems slightly counter to what we know is going on in the sector. So please do feel free to apply. And the timing, I don't think, is just applicable to commercialization projects in terms of the impact of a project and how that associates with a particular application. Dave, do you want to say something about that timing in terms of focus and
Yeah,
the timelines?
yeah. I mean, what I'd see there from Jackie, I mean, it's characteristic actually of a lot of really successful, highly impactful commercialization projects. You think of, you think of how long a patent lasts. You think sometimes how long it can take to bring something to market, new drug development, that kind of thing. So actually, there's a question there as to what should we focus on the TTO's involvement, which could have been early in the process, or the impact of the project in the year, which might have been, I don't know, when a widget or a drug actually made it to market. I think my recommendation would be to look at the totality of the process. So, what was the involvement of the university on the research side? Maybe what was the stuff that the TTO contributed to the timeline? But where is it now? What is it resulted in terms of health impact or commercial impact, etc. I think that would be it's that rounded story I think which would be of great interest.
I agree. I think every single KE project is a collective endeavor, which is why we want to focus on those partnerships. And we want to balance in this process, highlighting the contribution of knowledge exchange professionals, but also that collective endeavor in order to have that impact. That particularly with commercialization, it may be that the TTO has a very strong involvement for one particular phase, and less of involvement for other phases. But we want to get that balance between highlighting knowledge exchange professionals' contribution, but also the collective endeavor that means that these projects have a sort of wide societal, economic, and cultural impact across the UK. I think I'm going to finish on time so people can go to the lunch. But I'm going to ask you that one question, Dave, which is why? Why do you say yes every year? What makes you excited about the KE Awards and seeing what comes through your inbox that you're judging?
Well, for me personally, it's a really enjoyable, it's a joyous experience actually, being exposed to as much good practice and really exciting projects as you are when you're involved with the process. I've been involved with Knowledge Exchange UK and its predecessor organisations for a long time now, chairing organisations and chairing the merger between organisations, and some of that was a little less joyous. So I'm kind of rewarding myself now with involvement in this really positive process rather, which showcases the best of the sector.
And we appreciate all our volunteers, but I think that message about it's amazingly joyful and exciting to see the different impacts that are happening across the UK in those different categories, and then celebrating in November in Newcastle. As I say, there are other ways to contact us in the next 10 days if you want to. Hopefully that's provided you with some basic information that helps. Please do feel free to put an application. Don't hesitate. As I say, think, but don't worry. And hopefully that helps you over the next 10 days to sort of click all the right buttons and press something. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Dave, for your reflections and your thoughts. And we look forward to receiving those applications and sort of, yeah, picking up on some of that joy that Dave was talking about.